All right, everybody. I am super excited to have another Successfully Unemployed show for you today. Now, this show, we are talking about how to basically leave that 9 to 5 job and be successfully unemployed. And I bring on and interview guests just like the one I have today. She is a fantastic businesswoman. She runs her family. She does so many great things. And I have on the show Ariana Sylvester. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I am super excited to talk to you to get to know more about your business and what you do. Now, let's jump right into it. How do you make money to provide for your family?
Yeah, so I make money as a part of a team, a partnership. My husband Tom and I, who, if you've listened to this podcast, you've already heard his version of the story. You're going to hear mine today. But we help other people figure out what business they want to start and grow to create the lifestyle that they want for themselves and their loved ones. So that is how we are making money right now through courses and group programs.
Awesome. Now, the reason why I wanted to interview you guys separately is because you both have totally different personalities, which is fantastic. And you guys see different things from different perspectives. And you guys have a different upbringing and background. And so you guys approach different issues or problems or solutions differently, which is a great way to go. Now, let's jump back to before you were successfully unemployed. You were a zoology major. Now, talk to us about that. Then fast forward to the transition to where you are now. Tell us about that whole process because we are just ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things by not working a 9 to 5 job. Most people work a 9 to 5. We're extraordinary now because we escaped that rat race. How did you get started and how did you end up to where you are now?
Yeah, so I was, as Tom would say, I was following the traditional path. I graduated high school and went to college and did what everyone says you should do, which is follow your passion. And at the time, my passion was very much so animals. I loved animals. I wanted to be working with animals. I was very interested in all things animals. So I went to college for a zoology degree, which was a great idea in retrospect because it was really cool. I got to do a lot of cool things. I interned at a zoo and got to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But in retrospect, as I got to my senior year of college with this zoology degree, I kind of had like one of those freak out hyperventilating moments because I was starting to look at like, what is my real life going to look like? And I was like, oh crap, I don't actually know what I'm going to do with this thing because as I interned at the zoo, that was one of the places where I thought like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a zookeeper like that. I love that idea. It was not actually a great plan for me because what I found out as I interned there was zookeeping jobs are very few and far between. You mostly have to travel somewhere else to find one. Our local zoo, there had been people there working part time for years, waiting for a full time zookeeping position to open. So that kind of dashed my dreams a little bit. And I was like, oh, maybe this is not going to work out the way I planned. And the only other way to really use my zoology degree would have been to like go into research of some sort. And that didn't make me excited or fill me up with joy. And so I ended up working at an animal shelter because that was the next closest thing for just above minimum wage and really like hard labor tasks because I was working on the farm at the animal shelter.
Working on the farm, going
Yep.
from the zoo, being a zookeeper to working on the farm. And then you realize this is not something you want to do. And obviously getting married, you and your husband are, was it high school sweethearts that you guys met?
We were freshman year college sweethearts.
College.
So
Got
like
it.
the first week of freshman year we met and decided we were going to
Fantastic.
spend the rest of our lives together.
That's awesome. So then transition to now you as a couple have many businesses, everything from real estate to a convenience store, even commercial real estate on top of that. You also have your coaching business. You also have courses and stuff like that. So how
Mhm.
did you go from there, from being a zoology major to then now where you actually can have all these other businesses?
So you'll see my tiny person has just interrupted me to fix his YouTube video again. So basically, as I was working at the animal shelter, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing, but I actually got injured, which kind of caused me to see like, oh, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I just got an injury that is going to just keep happening as I try to work this job. So I ended up moving into a office position as an administrative assistant because with a zoology degree, I didn't have a lot of experience to do a whole lot else. But I was quick to pick up some of those tasks as an admin assistant. So I kind of moved into that space of this is where I'm going to be now. And I hopped around probably around 3 to 4 different admin assistant jobs over a couple year time span. And I just kind of felt like I was floating and I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be. And I probably would have kept floating, except we decided that it was time to start a family. So I got pregnant, and we had to have that conversation of what are we going to do when the baby comes? Are we going to put our child in daycare? Am I going to stay home? I had never given a lot of thought to being a stay at home mom, but it kind of sounded nice. Okay, I'll try that. Well, we want to bond with our baby and have that option, that choice. So in the meantime of all of that happening, Tom actually decided he was going to start a business. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I was really not on that whole entrepreneurial track. He had that epiphany himself. And I kind of was like, well, I don't really want to join you in that, but I guess I'm going to support you in it. So you do your thing, and I'm going to keep doing my thing until I had seen he started to struggle with a lot of the back end administrative tasks of running a real estate business. And he was still working a full time job. So I said, well, I don't really want to be a business owner. I don't want to be an entrepreneur per se, but I do want to support you. You're my husband. We're building a life together. So, how can I help? How can I jump in and assist you in some way? So, that was kind of where like the first step was taken into the entrepreneurship journey, where I stepped into, I used to call myself the manager of the businesses, and that's kind of what I accepted that role, and I didn't want to go any further. As we were kind of doing this thing, I was working and I was helping him on the side. We got pregnant, and he decided that it was time to start the second business. So as we were pregnant with our first child, he was launching a retail wine and liquor store. And again, working a full time job, he found himself needing some assistance with doing some tasks on the back end and trying to figure out, like, how are we going to raise a child and also run this new business that you just decided to start? Was where I stepped further into, okay, well, now I'm not just a manager. I'm not going to just manage this business. I'm also going to help you plan it and put this together, which was something I had never done before because, most people don't just up and start a retail business. So, as you can see, this is kind of like an evolution of me kind of stepping in to help with the businesses that Tom ran. And inside of that, I think kind of getting more in touch with this entrepreneurial side that I never had and never really thought about, never really wanted as we had begun. But it's something that kind of teaches you that there is a different path. And I think over time, I had a little bit of the same epiphany that Tom had, that we could design our life differently and we could do things kind of the way that we wanted to instead of following that traditional path.
So I have never had anybody, and I had Tom on the show, but he's such a great businessman. I want him to talk about all things business. I actually, since you just brought up the wine and liquor store, I love that idea of actually, you guys, because you're married to Tom, you guys have systems in place, which are fantastic, but you didn't start there. You had to eventually get there. Talk to us a little bit about, if we're going to start a convenience store, a liquor store, or just a retail establishment, let's start with the first thing. What should we do if we're going to be starting? Because you're different perspective than Tom. He probably just jumped right in. Maybe you would probably maybe have a different perspective. How would we get started with a retail establishment?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is to just really dive in and do your research. I mean, look at what type of establishment you're going to start. If you're looking at a brick and mortar business, what can you see yourself doing? What do you have interest in? What does your location need, your local area? Because a lot of that's going to depend very much on where you are if you're going to start some sort of local offline business. And then once you've kind of gotten the research into what you think you want to start, really looking at how is it possible for that business to run, because a lot of small business owners that are, location dependent, they have an actual store, they are working in the store most of the time. And when we looked at opening this retail wine and liquor store, that was something where right at the bat said, we don't want to be working there all the time. So if we can't figure out how to make this business model work without us being there 24/7 anytime we're open, we don't want to start. Excuse me. We don't want to start that. So that was something we built in.
So with and I love that idea because I myself had a convenience store as well. We didn't actually get the wine and liquor. That was a whole nother step. I was like, oh man, let's just get started. And then we never got into it. But we had everything that you would think of. We even sold pizza. Like we even had an oven and made pizzas inside there. But the whole process of building a business like that, a brick and mortar business, is so much you need to do, especially if you do not want to work in the business. Like I did not want to be an owner operator. Like you said, I did not want to be in the business day in and day out. I wanted to hire employees. I wanted to be a business owner, not a business runner. And so
Exactly.
tell us about how do we make that? Well, we found a location. We know what we want to sell. It's going to fit really well with the area. We found a location that looks pretty good and it might work. How do we then make it a fully functioning business that's going to, number one, get customers, and the number two, be able to manage without you guys being there?
Yeah. So a lot of this, I will put it out there, just as a caveat, a lot of this was built over time. Like you said, when we first started, we didn't have all the systems in place, but we learned as we went. So we took anything that happened in the business that was like something that we had to rush to take care of, or something that happened that we were kind of like, ooh, well, that wasn't very fun. Any kind of that stuff, we would take that and figure out a system to put in place so that that either didn't happen, or the staff was trained on what to do when it happens, so they didn't need to call us every time there was that sort of like emergency. So obviously a big part of this is hiring good people. So kind of putting that expectation out there of what you expect of your staff members that you're bringing in the right type of people for the business that you have. If you're looking for people to grow into different positions within your business, like one of our employees, he was just regular old employee. He was a great fit for our store, and he actually ended up growing into a position with more responsibility. He is now our purchasing manager. So he's responsible for purchasing all of our wine and liquor. He's responsible for managing the store. He does the schedule. He inputs the time for the other staff members. He takes care of anything that kind of pops up throughout the day if it's not something that needs our approval first. So just keep in mind, like, you want to hire the right people and put in place the systems so that those people can do the job that they need to do without having to come to you for every 5 seconds. We have standard operating procedures. So we have a binder that everybody gets trained on in the same way. We have communication. We've used technology from the online space successfully in our offline business. We love Slack for our team communication. So everybody's aware of what's happening. If we need to get some information from them or make an announcement of some sort, we can make that on Slack and everybody can see it. And then if they have questions or need things from us, they can also get in touch with us there. So that's one of the ways that we've loved putting technology in place for that offline business. And then really just over time, taking all of our processes and just making little improvements each time we do something. So when we first opened, I used to do all of the ordering of our product, which Tom will tell you is hilarious because I don't actually drink that much wine or liquor. But but we were business owners that didn't have anybody else to do that. So we had to do it. And that was one of my tasks as a stay-at-home mom, was managing the real estate business and the retail wine and liquor store. So I had to learn how to look at a report of all of our inventory and figure out what items we should order and go through the ordering process. And it took me hours. Every week I was doing the same thing, where over time we kind of looked at, here's this employee who's really interested in all the wine and liquor. He's actually at the store, he's working there, and he probably would do it better than me. So at one point, we said, "Hey, would you be interested in this if we train you on how to do it, if we give you the budget and spreadsheets and all that?" And he said, "Sure, sure, I'll try that out." So that was an area where, most business owners, if they're working in the business, they think they have to be doing everything all the time. But if you hire the right people and you put the right systems in place, you can actually delegate a lot of that stuff out. So that gives you space to be doing what you really want to be doing. If it's spending time with your family, maybe it's traveling, maybe you're a serial entrepreneur like Tom and you want to start another business, but you can't do that if you're stuck working in your business 24/7.
Yeah, Tom and I are very, very much alike. And he and I are not happy unless we're building something. Once we build it and it's all built, we're like, huh, we're done. I got to do
Now what?
something else. Yeah, I got to build something else. Absolutely. And so there was a time with Master Passive Income. It's I teach people about how to invest in real estate, and I love doing it. But everything's basically built. There's not a whole.
Yeah.
There's some things I can do, but it's not built. Like I now with building other businesses, it's so much fun. But what's great is with technology now, and I love what you talked about utilizing online technology software that's basically online for the online space. You're putting that to work in a practical or like a brick and mortar business. Now, before you had these technology, you would not be able to do this. Like, back 50 years ago, before this, it'd be so much more work to automate or to allow
Yes.
people to do this work. So I love that idea of utilizing technology that's current today. And like I was basically realizing that no time in the history of the world has it been so easy to start a business, to run a business, and make it automatic. It's just absolutely amazing. Okay, so we're getting an employee, and one big thing, I hate babysitting. And so you've had this employee I remember I met Tom in 2017, and you've had this employee for a little longer than that, right? Like, so they've been around for a while. How do you make sure you find the right employee?
I think for us, it was really around everything that in our business was trainable. Nobody had to come in with prior knowledge about how to do anything. It was more the feeling that we were looking for, the people, the type of person we were looking for to come in and be. We call our employees part of the WWS family. Our business is Warsaw Wine and Spirit. So it was really creating that vibe of a collection of people who wanted to work there because it was a fun job. They enjoyed helping the customers coming in the store. They get along well with Tom and I's personality and with the other staff members. So it was kind of really around cultivating that. And obviously, we went through different iterations of people, and staff members that we had have left us since then, but we've had two people who've been with us almost the entire time our store has been open. So it's kind of, we have like our matriarch, we call her Miss Mary, but she has been around since the week after we opened the store, and she's our closest to full-time employee. So she runs all daytime hours at the store. And so she was really there, she's very interested in the details. She's always worried about making sure everything is running well and making sure everybody's aware of what's happening. Just keeping people together, keeping people educated about what's happening, other staff members. And then our purchasing manager, Tom, he actually was a happy accident, or I guess as Tom would probably say, a well-timed opportunity.
Wait, there's two Toms?
There's two Toms.
Okay,
Yeah, I know
let's
it's
clarify that.
confusing for everyone that works for us and that comes in the store, because it's actually three Toms if you count Tom's father, and he owns a store in the neighboring town, a liquor store. So there's Big Tom, who owns the store in one town, and then my Tom, who owns the store in that town, and then our purchasing manager, Tom. So I don't know how that happened, but it did. But he basically came in, him and his wife came in while we were having a tasting. A winery stopped in. They were holding a tasting just for us, but they came in, they were very interested, and he was very interested in the store. And it happened that Tom was there. So he got to meet him and like they hit it off right away. And he was like, you know what? We're not looking for anybody right now, but you would be great to work here if you're interested. And he was like, yeah, sure. I would love to come and work here. So we got him an application. And don't you know, about a week or two later, one of our employees put in his notice that he was going to be leaving us. And we were like, this is perfect. We can hire that guy. So I think it was just being aware of who we were looking for and making sure to kind of create those opportunities to hire the right people, putting it out there like, here's what type of business we're running. Here's our overall mission. Here are kind of like our company values, and making sure that you're pulling in the right people for that and not worrying about if they're qualified or skilled enough to come in and work that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. With when it comes to hiring people, you want to make sure they fit the family, the people, like you said, the you said WS Warsaw
WWS.
WWS. Okay, um, so you need to have people inside that fits the community or the family, the way that people gel together, and it's really really hard to do this. But if you need somebody to hire and you need to put them in a place, don't just grab the first warm body and say, okay, you
Mhm.
should do, let's bring you in there. My take or my business model is hire slow but fire fast, because I am not going to babysit you. If I'm going to babysit you, I'm going to put one of my kids in there. So you need to be able to fully function without me. But here's a great thing that you've done also, I think, with Tom, the employee inside your store. You give him a responsibility. You say, hey, this is your baby. You run with it. And I love that idea, because what they get is they get buy-in. And I had with my
Mhm.
convenience store, we went through a good amount of employees, and it was rather a bummer having to babysit. But one employee, his name was Jimmy, and he was fantastic. He like this was his baby. He would tell me, hey boss, I was over at Costco and I saw that, we sell these or we buy these for this price. They're selling them there for this price. We can get it cheaper and then sell it here. I'm like, awesome, let's do it, man. So I'm like, those types of ideas and seeing him wanting to order things like that, it was so great. And so I said, hey, just like you guys, I said, would you like to take over this? And I'll train you up. I'll help you to do it right. But then I already knew that this guy, as he was coming in, I knew that he would work well because our personalities meshed and I can
Yep.
see a little bit of drive. Now,
Yeah.
what I also, another business rule of mine, I don't get into business with anybody that I don't get along with. And
Yeah.
it's probably just me, like my personality probably just rubs them wrong and they get mad. But whatever it is, like if we don't get along, we're not going to work together. And so that's another thing that I just make sure from now. That's something that I learned from my convenience store. If I don't get
Yes.
along with somebody, it's probably not going to work out long term. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the idea of the back end. What was that back end type of stuff that you had to take over that needed to get done? Because not a lot of people think get a location, put some bottles of wine in there, get a cash register, get an employee. What else can we be missing?
For us, it was a lot of like the paper trail. Tom had to go through a really, really exclusive, deep, like background check because New York State is really strict with its liquor laws. But while we were doing that, we didn't know how long it would take. So we kind of had to go and do all of this work, assuming we got approved, so that if he did get approved, we could then go and open because we'd been waiting all this time. And we are very lucky that in our business, it was a real estate business. So we bought the building with the real estate business. So we already owned that, but we wanted to make use of that space and be able to start paying rent to the real estate business from this business. So we tried to do everything possible. We checked on insurance. We looked at how we were going to be ordering. We looked at where we were going to place things. We had to order shelves. We wanted to get employees kind of like set and ready, but we didn't have an open date. So it was kind of like, well, can we find anybody who might be a good fit and just kind of keep their applications on file and hope that they're still available when we eventually do open. A lot of it was figuring out how we were going to run the business when we didn't work there 24/7. So, I was going to be home with the baby. I was going to be in charge of the ordering. So how could we set up our system there that would enable me to get all the information I needed. So we ended up using Dropbox, and we had a printer scanner, and we set the folder that the scanner would save to in Dropbox. So anytime Miss Mary needed me to have information, we would have it scanned in and it would save automatically to our computer. So that allowed me to call her up and say, hey, I need you to run this report. And she would save it and put it in the folder. I would immediately then have access to it to do the work that I needed to do here from home. We needed to get payroll in place. This was our first business where we were going to have actual employees, because our real estate business was just with us. And I'm trying to think, there was a lot of like little detailed stuff that you wouldn't think about, but just like store appearance. How are we going to set things up? What is it going to look like? Kind of what are our policies around the store? What is the customer experience that we want to create here when people are coming in? Just so many things. How are we going to do the money, like the bank deposit and all that, if we live in a different city from where our store is? So yeah, a lot of the little detailed stuff that you normally wouldn't see in a business and you wouldn't think about if you weren't running one.
Yeah, that's there are so many things in the back end. I mean, even just accounting for everything, just accounting alone is just ridiculous in order to
Yep.
figure that out. And I am so excited that I got to talk to you about your perspective in the business. And like I have talked to Tom quite a bit extensively about his businesses, and I get his perspective. He's got a great perspective, but the reason why I think it's great because I have the same similar perspective.
Because they match.
We're two peas in a pod. Now getting your perspective is fantastic because we all have different perspectives. And that's why, so I want to bring out your book, Lifestyle Builders. You want to hold up your copy of it? So it looks right. There we go. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Lifestyle Builders. So mine's a little backwards in YouTube. But so Lifestyle Builders, it's fantastic because it has both of your perspectives as you're going through building businesses, solving problems, getting new things going on in the businesses. And that's what's fantastic is as you're working together, you're actually able to figure these things out. And what I love is as you're talking through the book, Lifestyle Builders, you are helping us to understand if you're working with somebody else to have different perspectives, that it's okay. Like no,
Yep.
the other person's not wrong. It's just different. So we got to make sure we work it out to what's best for the entire business. Like my wife, she is fantastic at details. I am not. I'm big, like big picture. I am.
Why does it not surprise me? Because you and Tom are twins.
He's just better looking. So we're twins, but better look. He's better looking. But in the book, what's great is you give the perspective, and what I can read is, man, oh, that's how my wife thinks. Okay, that helps me to move forward and come to a not necessarily agreement, but we work together rather than me thinking you're wrong, I'm right. That's not the right way to go. We need to work together. So I love the book. Now, from there, I want to jump into the rapid fire round. You ready?
Okay.
All right. So the rapid fire round, we're going to be talking about broader questions, but you should be able to answer them no problem. So the first question is, since you're not having to work, work at the animal shelter, working in a zoo, and you have a little more, you're not working 40 plus hours, 50 plus hours a week, how are you able to give back to your community, to make the world a better place or anything like that, to make things better around you for other people?
Yeah, so I think one of my most favorite ways to give back to the community is I'm actually in a women's community chorus. And I love being able to use my voice and something that I enjoy doing to create joy for other people. We sing at different events around here locally, and then we have a concert as well. And I think just that. That contribution just really makes me feel joyful and it gives me some space away from the business.
That's fantastic. I love it. Now, if you were going to give somebody, let's say a wife, you're going to give a wife helping hand to understand the process of somebody who is an entrepreneur, like they're married to an entrepreneur that wants to build businesses, or just somebody that's saying, you know what, I'm tired of working a job, a just over broke job. I want to be successful and employed. What tips would you give somebody either starting a business or helping somebody out? What tips would you give to somebody getting started?
I think really stepping back from some of your perceived assumptions about what that person is thinking or what they're going through, and just really trying to understand at the deeper level, like why this is so important to them. Because I know it can be scary because talking about entrepreneurship, talking about starting your own business seems like a very risky thing. And those of us that are more risk averse, that's the last thing we want to do is jump into something that seems risky or that seems like it's going to cost you a lot of money or a lot of time and it's going to take you away from your family, just to kind of put your own perceptions of what's happening on hold and ask and seek to understand.
I love that. And I want to touch, you did literally just said those few words, ask and then seek to understand. Because usually I don't even ask, number one, and then I just don't care to understand. So I just keep going. So I need to implement that in my life, is definitely ask so I get a different perspective, or the other person or my wife's perspective, but then seek to understand why they feel that way. And then also even the how, like, how are you getting to that assumption or that understanding? And it could be something that we need to actually dive into. So love that. Now, if we were to have a tool, an app, or a journal, or something that we can utilize in our life, that's a tool, what would you suggest we use?
I gotta go with my all-time fave is Google Calendar. That's pretty much how we live around here. It's free. It's one of Google's best products, I think, in my opinion. We've been able to use it to create a lot of clarity around our own life and our priorities. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen. And just obviously, with owning multiple businesses and having kids and having life in general, it's really helped us to create our system that works for us, of how who's taking care of what and who's going to be where, and really making sure that we're prioritizing family time over the business. Because obviously, as you get excited to start your business and grow your business, it's really easy to prioritize that. But Google Calendar really helps me remember what it's all about. We put the family stuff on first.
I'm gonna need you to talk to my wife, because she's a physical calendar. If it's not on the paper calendar, like I'll say, "Hey, babe, we have this." Somebody texted me, and we're gonna go to dinner over there. She'll say, "Can you write it on the calendar?" Like, I just put it in my phone calendar. Why do I have to write it on a paper? Anyways, that's okay. So from there, what advice would you give your younger self, like 12, 13, 14 years old? It could be, possibly don't go into zoology, but is there a big principle, key point that you would want yourself to know to be where you are now?
I'm not going to say don't go into zoology, because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have met my husband. But I'm going to say to be less afraid of failure and stop worrying about other people's expectations of you.
Those are brilliant. I completely, well, quickly expand on, don't be afraid of failure. What does that mean?
I think I was one of those kids growing up who I was always well behaved. I always did what I was told. I excelled at anything that I tried to do. So I was a three-sport athlete. I was in the musicals. I was friends with a lot of people in school. I had straight A's. So I had these high expectations held of me from my parents and just even from myself. I think that was sort of my personality. I was a contributor. I was a helper. I wanted to be useful. Um, but I didn't fail very often. And because of that, it really set me up for some hard times later on in life, because I didn't get to fail small, which did not help me prepare to fail big, which happens a lot when you become an entrepreneur. So I think really just having I I wish I had somebody who had pushed me to do things that maybe I wasn't so good at, or pushed me to do things that had that chance of failure. Because even as an athlete, like, yeah, sure, I failed as an athlete, but it wasn't something that created a hardship in my life, to be able to learn how to get past that failure and take the lesson from the other side.
I think it's a great idea. I love that. I love, because when you fail, you learn. That's the biggest thing. I know if you do something well and you actually win, you do learn a little bit, but it does, like, if you work really your tail off and then you fail and you lose, it's like, this is why I lost. And it really, for me, it sticks in my brain. So I love that. That's fantastic. Okay. So the last question, other than the Lifestyle Builders book, what is, because we're going to put a link to the Lifestyle Builders book inside the show notes. What is one nonfiction book that you would suggest that we should read to become successfully unemployed?
Ooh, that's a good one. See, I do not actually read that many books. I love to read for pleasure. So reading for education purposes and for entrepreneurship, I'm just like, yeah, maybe not. But I have started to read more. And I will say there's not a specific book, but I recently have fallen in love with Brene Brown because, as we just talked about, a lot of that perfectionism, that failure, those outside expectations, those were things that I grew up with and kind of had set in my mind. And overcoming and reframing some of that stuff, like doing the inner work, has been really difficult. And she was somebody who she just makes a lot of sense. She makes it very simple and factual. And it just was really, it was really resonating with me as I read one of her books. I think I read Dare to Lead first. And so that's on my to-do list, is to read more of the Brene Brown books. But I watched her special on Netflix and it just really spoke to me. I was like, hey, I think I might actually have some nonfiction books that I want to read now.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to have to put that in show notes. I've never heard of that, but I know,
It's so good.
yeah, most people that I interview, they give us a business book, which is great. This is fantastic to help us work on ourselves because, when it really comes down to, if we're better ourselves, like we are better at helping other people, serving other people, then we get better in business. So I love that. Well, Ariana, it's been fantastic having you on the show. I want to make sure everybody can reach out to you if they need to and they want to. How can they do that?
Yeah. So the easiest way is you can find us everywhere on the internet at Tom and Ariana. That's our handle for whatever social media platform you're on. But easiest way to find us is to go to our website, wearelifestylebuilders.com.
Awesome. Ariana, Sylvester, thank you so much for being here on the show with us.
And thank you so much for having me on.
All right, you take care. That is it for today's show. Now, I would so appreciate it if you hit that like and that subscribe button. I want you to be a part of this. So subscribe so I can get you all this great content on how to be successfully unemployed. Now, I do want this show to be all about you. So in the comments, I would love to hear your comments of how this is a great way and how you're going to apply this to quit your job, or this is the worst way to be successfully unemployed, whatever it might be. Leave it in the comments below so that I can interact with you. I want to see how I can help you to quit your JOB, that just over broke job. So if you got anything out of this, I would love it if you shared with one person, said, hey, there is a way to be successfully unemployed and quit that just over broke job, and here's a way to do it. So share it with one person. So you guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Successfully Unemployed show. We'll see you next time.